Back in the 1940s, long before we had air purifiers, HEPA filters, or even those smart thermostats, families had this winter air habit that quietly did wonders for health. It helped reduce respiratory illnesses and cut down those pesky doctor visits. Now, it wasn't about medicine, supplements, or any fancy equipment. Nope, it was all about deliberate winter ventilation. Not those accidental drafts or leaky houses, but a conscious routine of managing cold air to keep moisture, pathogens, and indoor air stagnation in check. This habit, well, it was widely understood, but you wouldn't find it written down formally. It was passed down through good old experience rather than any fancy theory. And today it's still one of those overlooked health practices from the wartime home front. During the 1940s, winter air was seen as corrective, not dangerous, when used the right way. Homes were closed up for warmth, sure, but never sealed completely. Families would crack windows for short, controlled periods each day, even when it was freezing outside. This was usually done in the morning and again before bed. The goal wasn't comfort, it was all about air exchange. You see, stale indoor air, heavy with moisture from cooking, coal stoves, kerosene heaters, and, well, human breath needed to be flushed out. This practice reduced condensation on walls, limited mold growth, and lowered the concentration of airborne bacteria and viruses. It was pretty effective, if you ask me. Back in those days, doctors often recommended fresh air as a way to prevent illness, especially when it came to respiratory troubles. Tuberculosis wards, flu recovery rooms, and even children's hospitals would regularly use cold air ventilation as part of their routine care. Folks didn't see this belief as anything romantic. It was just plain practical. Cold air was thought to dry out the lungs a bit, cut down on how long bacteria could survive in the air, and help keep homes from getting too damp, which, could make coughs and infections worse. Truth is, most winter illnesses around the house weren't really caused by the cold itself, but by, well, stagnant, moisture-heavy indoor air. Burning coal and wood for heat brought humidity, along with soot and all sorts of gases. And when windows stayed closed for weeks on end, all that stuff just got trapped inside. Bedrooms were particularly problematic. Folks would sleep for about 8 hours, just breathing the same air over and over, which, raised carbon dioxide levels and dried out their throats, while humidity would kind of settle on cold surfaces. This mix of things irritated airways and, well, weakened resistance to infection. The winter air habit tackled this head-on. Just a brief exchange of air would cut down carbon dioxide, lower humidity, and, refresh the oxygen levels. Families started to notice fewer morning headaches, less of that stubborn coughing, and, honestly, faster recovery from colds. These were practical observations, not just theories, and word spread quickly, mainly because, well, it really worked. Cold air itself doesn't kill viruses right away, but, dry air actually reduces how long those respiratory droplets can hang around in the air. Back in the 1940s, folks understood this in a practical way. Damp air let germs linger, but dry air made those droplets fall or evaporate a whole lot faster. When cold outdoor air came in and replaced the warm air inside, well, the humidity would drop real fast. This sharp drop limited mold spores, cut down on bacterial growth on surfaces, and honestly just made it tougher for illness to spread indoors. This was especially important during winter when families were spending more time inside together. Schools, churches, and homes that kept up with regular ventilation, they saw fewer outbreaks of those long-lasting respiratory illnesses. The habit was simple, repeatable, and required no external supplies, which really mattered during wartime shortages. The key was timing and duration. Windows were opened wide, but just briefly. 5 to 10 minutes was often enough. Cross-ventilation was preferred, opening 2 windows on opposite sides of the house to create a fast air exchange. This avoided chilling furniture and walls while still replacing the air volume. In bedrooms, a small window was often left slightly open overnight, even in freezing weather, with heavy blankets compensating for the cold. Now, this was not reckless exposure, not at all. Folks understood that any heat loss was really just temporary. The walls held onto warmth, and stoves or radiators would, quickly bring comfort back. The real benefit here was cumulative. Day after day, moisture just never got the chance to build up. Mold never really took hold, and coughs didn't seem to linger as long. Doctor visits, they actually went down because those minor illnesses just didn't have the opportunity to turn into chronic problems. Back in the 1940s, access to doctors was honestly pretty limited. A lot of physicians were off serving in the military. Antibiotics, they were scarce and saved for only the most serious cases. So prevention was a big deal. Families leaned on habits that kept sickness at bay before it even got started. Winter ventilation was one of the most effective because, it addressed multiple problems at once. Respiratory health, mold control, and even fuel efficiency by keeping heating systems from working against damp air. Damp air just feels colder than dry air. By reducing indoor humidity, homes often felt warmer at lower temperatures. This reduced fuel consumption, which was a critical factor during rationing. After the war, construction shifted toward airtight homes. Central heating, insulation, and later air conditioning changed how folks thought about indoor air. Fresh air became something filtered mechanically rather than exchanged naturally. The old habit faded, not because it stopped working, but because it was no longer discussed. Modern homes, ironically, recreated many of the same problems: trapped moisture, stale air, and higher rates of respiratory irritation during winter. The habit translates directly to modern living. Short, deliberate ventilation sessions remain effective. Opening windows fully for a few minutes creates a rapid air exchange without significant heat loss. Doing this after cooking, before sleep, or in the morning prevents moisture buildup. In bedrooms, slightly cracked windows paired with proper bedding can improve sleep quality and reduce morning congestion. For preppers and survivalists, this habit is especially valuable during power outages. When mechanical ventilation fails, natural air exchange becomes essential. Managing air quality without electricity was routine in the 1940s, and, it remains a core resilience skill. It prevents mold growth during prolonged winter confinement and reduces illness when medical access is limited. In cold climates, the key is discipline rather than comfort. Short exposure achieves the benefit. Long exposure is unnecessary. The goal is air replacement, not chilling the structure. The winter air habit was not superstition or folklore. It was an adaptive response to real conditions, refined through observation and necessity. It worked because it addressed the environment people lived in, not just the symptoms they experienced. Fewer doctor visits were the result of fewer lingering illnesses, fewer secondary infections, and healthier indoor air overall. This is one of those quiet lessons history offers without fanfare. It requires no special tools, no ideology, and no modern branding, just awareness and consistency. If you found this breakdown valuable and want more deeply researched practical history like this, subscribe to Warfield Prepper Chronicles. Share this with others who care about forgotten knowledge that still works. History only matters if we use it.